Screams tore through the sweltering afternoon air on Main Street in the quiet town of Brookside. Wild dog, it's attacking a child. Neighbors spilled from their small houses on either side of the road, eyes wide with panic and dread. Footsteps pounded the pavement as frantic voices shouted, "Call 911!" From the far end of the street, a strange and terrifying sight unfolded. A large German shepherd, covered in dirt and streaked with blood, dragging a tiny little girl by the sleeve of her dusty pink shirt. That was Max. And the girl was Lily Monroe, 3 years old, daughter of Rachel and David Monroe. Max didn't whimper. He didn't bark or run. His amber eyes shimmered with urgency, flicking between the growing crowd and the body he was dragging behind him. He hesitated for a moment when a young man rushed forward with a stick. Max gave a low growl, not threatening, but as if to say, "Stay back." The blood on his neck was his own, from a sharp rock that had torn into his side as he squeezed through a broken section of fence. More blows, sticks, stones, angry words had rained down on him. Still, he held on. Lily didn't move. Her lips had turned a pale blue, her tiny arms covered in angry, swollen hives. Each breath came out in shallow gasps, her chest rising with visible strain. But no one noticed. Every eye was on Max, and fear was all they saw. "Get back! That dog's gone mad!" someone yelled. An older woman by the fence clutched her phone with trembling hands, voice cracking as she spoke to emergency services. "There's a big dog dragging a little girl down Main Street. She's not moving. Please hurry, I think it's killing her." Max's jaws remained firm on the girl's sleeve. Not flesh, just fabric. Just enough to hold her, not enough to hurt. From the crowd, an elderly man pushed forward. His skin was weathered, his eyes sharp and focused. Frank Delaney, once a military K-9 handler, now retired. He studied Max for a long second, brow furrowed. "He's got her by the shirt," Frank murmured. "Not the neck, the sleeve." But his words were drowned out by louder voices. "Hit it! Get the girl!" Another rock flew through the air, striking Max's shoulder. He let out a strained cry, but still didn't let go. A year earlier, Brookside was still the kind of small town where people knew not only their neighbors' dogs' names, but their birthdays too. The Monroe family had moved in during winter, shortly after the sudden death of David's father. Peter Monroe, a retired Marine who lived alone with his German shepherd, Max. Max had been partially trained as a working dog, sharp and intuitive, in a way that made him feel more human than canine. When Peter died of a heart attack while mowing the lawn, David, his only son, took over the old house with his wife, Rachel, and their 3-year-old daughter, Lily. Rachel had never been fond of large dogs. Her maternal instinct was fierce, her fear rooted in love. "You really think a 3-year-old needs a 90-pound dog charging through the house?" she had asked when they first discussed keeping Max. David, ever the peacekeeper, hadn't argued. Eventually, he told her Max had been adopted by a friend in Boston, but no friend ever came. One cold evening, David led Max quietly to the edge of the sparse woods behind the house, the place locals called the Pines. He placed a bag of food on the frosty ground, unclipped Max's leash, and whispered, "I'm sorry," as the dog's amber eyes stared up at him without blinking. Then he turned away. It was the only real lie of their marriage. Max didn't go far. He lingered near the woods, living off instincts and the occasional overturned trash can. But someone noticed him. Lily. The first time she saw Max crouch behind a thicket, his golden eyes peering out like a ghost from a storybook. Instead of fear, Lily knelt down, pulled a scrap of bread from her coat pocket and offered it. Max sniffed, then gently took it from her hand, never touching her skin. After that, their meetings became routine, secret rendezvous between a forgotten dog and a fearless child. Lily began sneaking food, crusts in her jeans pocket, a sausage link wrapped in a napkin tucked into her little coat. "You're my secret friend," she whispered one day, burying her tiny fingers in his coarse fur. "Mama says not to play with strange dogs, but you're not strange. You're Grandpa's." Max never barked, never jumped, never frightened her. He simply lay beside her, resting his head on her knees like a guardian of her tiny world. No one in town knew. Rachel didn't know, and David didn't want to. That morning started like any other in the heat of summer, still stifling, filled with the buzz of cicadas. Rachel Monroe stood in the kitchen, condensation dripping from her glass of iced tea, phone pressed to her ear as the Brookside Elementary principal detailed next year's budget cuts. "Yes, I understand. Larger class sizes, but the supply budget already..." She glanced toward the kitchen table where Lily was coloring, then froze mid-sentence. Lily's chair was empty. The back door stood ajar, swaying in the breeze. "Lily!" Rachel called out, voice tightening with panic. "Lily!" She ran outside. No sign of her daughter. The loose board in the backyard fence, the one she meant to fix months ago, was shifted aside. Lily had gone through, back into the pines. Beyond the fence, Lily walked with the easy confidence of someone who knew the way. Her light-up sneakers left faint impressions in the soft earth. To adults, the woods were wild and tangled, but to Lily it was a world of wonder. Towering wildflowers, shafts of light through the trees, and Max, her secret friend, waiting somewhere nearby. "Max," she called in a stage whisper, "I brought chicken sausage today." From behind the brush, Max appeared, quiet, cautious, his ears perked, eyes scanning. Satisfied Lily was alone, he stepped forward, tail swishing gently. Lily giggled as Max sniffed her coat pocket. "Be patient," she chided, mimicking her mother's tone. She unwrapped the napkin bundle and handed it to him. He took it delicately and lay down, chewing quietly while Lily talked about her morning. New crayons, a dress Mom wouldn't let her wear, the ants on the porch. "Let's explore today," she whispered once he'd finished. "Let's find treasure." Max stood, gave a soft bark. Lily took that as a yes. She held on to his fur to steady herself as they veered off their usual trail. 10 minutes later, they found a small clearing with the rotting stump of an old oak tree. "Look, Max, a fairy house!" She dropped to her knees, reaching inside. Max instantly growled low, nudging her back with his nose. But it was too late. A deep buzzing filled the air. Lily had disturbed a wasp nest. In a flash, one stung her wrist. She screamed, backing away. Another hit her neck, then her cheek, her leg. "Max, it hurts!" The swarm erupted. Max barked furiously, snapping at the air, catching wasps in his teeth. Lily cried uncontrollably, flailing, only making it worse. Then she fell. Her skin flushed red, her face puffed up. Breaths came in ragged gasps. "I can't breathe." Max circled her, whining, then froze. He looked at her, then the trees, then back. And then, with sudden purpose, Max grabbed her sleeve and pulled. He knew. He had to get her out. Away from the wasps, out of the woods, to humans. Each step was a struggle. His fur snagged on brambles, paws slipped in the dirt. But he didn't stop. Max began the journey that Brookside would never forget. A desperate, unwavering rescue, inch by inch, breath by breath, towards salvation. By the time Max dragged Lily to the edge of Main Street, chaos had fully erupted. Her pink dress was covered in dirt and leaves, her skin swollen with angry welts from the wasp stings. Her breathing was so faint it was nearly imperceptible. Max paused, not from exhaustion, but because he had reached the sound of people. Cars, footsteps, screams. A car slowed. The window rolled down, revealing the concerned face of Alice Green, an elderly neighbor. When she spotted Max and Lily, She screamed, voice trembling. "Oh my Lord, that dog's dragging a child's body. Someone call the police." The car door flew open. She stumbled out, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. Kids across the street began shouting. A man emerged with a stick. Max pulled Lily further into the street, as if trying to make her more visible. Shouts erupted. "It's trying to drag her away. Call animal control." Frank Delaney, the retired K-9 handler, pushed through the crowd. His sharp eyes scanned the scene. The unconscious girl, the bloodied dog, the defensive, but not aggressive, posture. His instincts kicked in. "Back up," he commanded. "That's not a rabid dog. That's defensive behavior." But few listened. A rock flew, hitting Max's ribs. He let out a cry but kept hold of Lily's sleeve. A branch slammed down across his back. His legs buckled, but he didn't let go. Blood from the gash on his head dripped onto the pavement. Max was fading, but his eyes still locked on Lily. Then a new scream broke through. Rachel's. She shoved her way through the crowd, hair disheveled, voice raw and terrified. "That's my daughter! That's Lily! Move!" She tried to run forward, but Frank held her back. "You can't. If you scare the dog, he might—" "That's Max! He's our dog! He won't hurt her!" Rachel cried. Max turned his head. His eyes met Rachel's, and in that instant, she understood. He wasn't taking her child away. He was holding her here. He was keeping her alive with the only thing he had left, his strength. Before Rachel could move, another voice rang out. Calm, firm. "You're the mother?" Dr. Henry Lowell, a retired pediatrician, stepped out of a recently parked sedan, a medical bag in his hand, his face composed but urgent. "Step aside, I'm a doctor. I need to get to her." Max growled low as he approached, but didn't move. Dr. Lowell showed no fear. He knelt slowly, eyes locked with Max's. "You did good, buddy. Now let me take it from here." He pulled out the epinephrine injector, and Max stepped back, half a step. Close enough to watch, far enough to allow access. The needle pierced Lily's thigh. The street held its breath. A long moment passed. Then, Lily's chest rose. She breathed. The wail of the ambulance echoed down Main Street just minutes after Dr. Lowell administered the epinephrine. A pair of EMTs rushed forward with a stretcher and oxygen mask. Rachel hovered close, eyes locked on her daughter, clutching Lily's tiny limp hand. Max didn't move away. Though blood matted his coat and his body trembled from exhaustion, he continued to stand guard, placing himself between Lily and anyone who came too fast. When a paramedic leaned in, Max growled low. Frank Delaney stepped in, voice calm but firm. "Let me." He knelt, resting a hand gently on Max's back. "She's going to be okay," he said softly. "You did good." Max looked at him, then stepped back. In that moment, the entire town looked at each other, and at Max differently. As the ambulance doors closed, Rachel climbed in beside her daughter. Through the window, she saw Max trying to follow, stumbling on injured legs, still bleeding. "Hold that dog!" someone yelled. "Call animal control!" another shouted. But Dr. Lowell raised his voice. "No one touches him. That dog just saved that little girl's life." As the vehicle began to roll forward, Max took a step, then another. He limped, one back leg dragging from injury, but he kept going, faster now. Max jogged alongside the street, chasing the ambulance with all the strength he had left, as if he couldn't let go, as if he needed to see it through. The townspeople parted silently, watching in awe as a bleeding, limping German shepherd chased after a white ambulance, sunlight glinting off his battered frame. Inside, Rachel glanced out the back window and saw him. Just a flash of fur, ears back, tongue out, limping, fighting. Her chest clenched. Tears streamed down her face. "Stop the car," she cried. "We can't. the paramedic replied. "We need to get her to ER now. The dog, he won't go far." As the ambulance disappeared around the bend, Max finally slowed. His heart pounded, legs trembled, lungs burning. He stood there a long moment, panting hard. And then, without a signal, without a command, he turned around. The job was done. The girl was safe. Step by step, Max limped back toward the edge of the woods, back to the place he had waited for Lily, every day for nearly a year. David Monroe, Rachel's husband, arrived at the hospital in a frenzy, having received her panicked call. When Dr. Lowell explained everything, David stood frozen, whispering, "Max, but she told me you gave him to a family." Rachel turned away, eyes welling. David dropped his gaze. "I let him go a year ago. You said we couldn't keep him, and I didn't argue." Dr. Lowell looked at them both, voice steady. "Then the dog you abandoned just saved your daughter." No one replied. That evening, after Lily was moved from the ER to pediatric care, Rachel sat motionless beside her daughter's bed, gripping the small, pale hand resting in hers. The machines beeped softly, a rhythmic reminder that every heartbeat was a miracle Max had reclaimed. "She's going to be okay," the doctor said gently. We caught it in time, but Rachel's mind couldn't leave Max, his amber eyes, the way he had looked at her before backing away, like he was saying, "I've done all I can." "He saved her," she whispered, "and we left him out there, like trash." David stood in the doorway, silent. He felt something inside his chest crack open, a weight of regret and shame pressed down on him. He hadn't defended Max. He had taken the easy way out, and Max had paid for it. The next morning, as the first light spilled over the trees, David stood at the edge of the pines. The cold morning air cut through his coat. The woods whispered back at him, full of memories, full of guilt. "Max," he called. His voice trembled. "I know you're out there. I know you can hear me." No reply, only bird song, leaves rustling. He pushed into the forest, through bramble-choked trails. He remembered that winter night, the leash, the bag of food, the whispered apology. He hadn't just let Max go. He had left him. A soft rustle, a shape emerged from the brush. Thin, battered, blood-dried fur. Max. One paw dragged slightly. His eyes held wariness, pain, betrayal. David didn't move closer. He knelt. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, Max. I probably never will. But I'm not here for me." His voice cracked. "I'm here for my daughter. You saved her. Not just yesterday. Every day you stayed near her in the woods. Every time you didn't bark or jump. Every time you took food from her hands like it was the greatest gift in the world." Tears spilled down David's cheeks. "I was weak. I let fear, her fear, make the decision. But you chose love, even when we chose to leave you." Max didn't move. "Buddy," David whispered, "if you can still find it in you, any piece of trust left, please come home. Not for me, for Lily. She misses you. She needs you." Silence stretched. Then Max stepped forward, slowly, painfully. But every step carried forgiveness. At the Brookside Veterinary Clinic, Dr. Shen examined Max in silence. "He's strong, incredibly strong," she said. "But," David and Rachel leaned in, holding hands. "Max's heart is severely enlarged, dilated cardiomyopathy, end stage. It can't be reversed. Maybe genetics, maybe long-term starvation. I can't say. But his time, it's short." Rachel covered her mouth. David leaned back, eyes shut. "We just got him back," she whispered. "How can we lose him now?" Max licked her hand gently. The next day, they brought Max home. Lily, though still weak, insisted on curling up beside Max on the sofa. "He's my hero," she said. "Heroes don't get left behind, right, Mommy?" Rachel smiled through tears. They set up a soft bed next to Lily's crib. Gentle food, heart medication, clean water, Grandpa Peter's old blanket. The Monroe family relearned how to love Max, not out of guilt, but out of gratitude. And Max? Max asked for nothing. All he wanted was to stay beside those he had chosen to protect, whether they deserved it or not. From the moment Max came home, the forest was no longer his shelter. No more cold nights. No more flinching at passing footsteps. He now had a soft bed beside Lily's crib, covered in a blanket that once belonged to Grandpa Peter. Rachel set an alarm every 6 hours to give Max his heart medicine. She softened his meals with warm broth, feeding him slowly with a spoon. David gently cleaned and rebandaged Max's injured legs, his touch as careful as if he were handling the very guilt he carried. And Lily, still weak, crawled out each day to lie beside Max on the rug, resting her head against his. "This is the safest place in the world," she whispered. Max didn't speak, but his eyes said everything. He looked at each family member with a quiet gentleness. He didn't bark or whine. He used his gaze, the gaze of one who had been abandoned, yet still chose to trust. Each morning when Rachel woke early to prepare his pills, Max would lift his head slowly, tail sweeping across the floor. When David leaned in to tend to his wounds, Max would gently lick his hand, not in blame, but in thanks. Max never asked for anything. When tired, he curled up beside Lily, his head resting on her legs, still guarding her tiny world. Sometimes David would sit alone on the porch. Max would quietly join him, lying close. One evening, David lowered his head against Max's back and whispered, "I don't deserve you." Max simply turned, his eyes soft, forgiving, as if to say, "I know, but I'm still here." Though the vet warned that Max had little time left, he lived each day as if he'd been reborn, not as a stray in the woods, but as a cherished part of a family. No one called Max the dog anymore. Lily called him "my brave buddy." Rachel whispered, "Sweet soldier," as she stroked his fur before bed. Max never begged, never whined, but every time he looked up at someone in the family, his eyes carried one quiet truth: "Thank you for not leaving me behind this time." And in the days following the incident, a quiet wave of change began to spread across Brookside. Photos and videos from that chaotic afternoon, Max dragging Lily through the street, covered in blood, attacked by mistake, yet never letting go, circulated online. The story soon spread far beyond the little town. Max was no longer the misunderstood big dog. He was now Brookside's hero, and on social media, people started calling him the guardian dog. Residents of the town, many of whom had been silent or mistaken, began making amends. They brought flowers, handwritten letters, and bags of food to the Monroe home. A veterinary clinic from a neighboring town offered to cover Max's heart medication. Elementary students drew pictures of Max with the words, "Thank you for being brave." Frank Delaney, the retired K-9 trainer who had first recognized Max wasn't attacking, but rescuing, visited the Monroe home after hearing about Max's diagnosis. "I've trained some of the smartest working dogs in the country," he told Rachel and David, "but I've never seen one with instincts this strong." Rachel wiped away tears. "You think Max was trained?" Frank nodded. "I'm not sure, but the way he watches, how he reacts under pressure, his calmness, that's not common. Maybe he was once trained and abandoned." After that visit, Frank began volunteering to train Max as a therapy dog, not for tricks, but to share the quiet love Max already had. "Dogs like Max don't need much training," he said. "They just need a chance." Brookside began to transform. A town-wide initiative called Second Chance for Guardians, launched with the mayor's support, aimed at helping misunderstood and abandoned animals. Max became the face of the campaign, once left behind, now helping an entire town heal. 1 month later, Max visited the local nursing home with Frank. There, an elderly woman named Mabel, who had barely spoken for years, smiled for the first time when Max rested his head gently on her lap. "She hasn't smiled like that since her husband passed," a nurse whispered. Max didn't do much, just stayed close. Rachel watched from across the room. In that moment, she understood. Max hadn't just saved Lily. He was healing invisible wounds all over town. That night, Lily sat next to Max and whispered, "You made a grandma smile today. Mommy says that's what magic looks like." Max didn't reply. He just closed his eyes, breathing softly, his tail slowly sweeping across the wooden floor. And Brookside, for the first time in a long time, felt like a family. A month after the events that shook the town, Brookside held an emergency meeting to discuss how to honor Max. The surprise wasn't who proposed it, but that everyone agreed instantly. The woods behind the Monroe house, the place Lily once snuck into, where Max once lived quietly, and where everything began, would be transformed into a public park. Its name, Guardian's Grove. Not just to honor a dog, the mayor said during the opening ceremony, but to remind us that sometimes a protector doesn't wear a badge or uniform, but carries a loyal heart and eyes that know how to love. The town erupted in applause. In the front row, Max lay at Lily's feet, head resting on her lap, eyes half closed, as if dreaming peacefully through the thunder of clapping. She wore a white dress with Max's image embroidered near the hem. In her hand was a red ribbon cutter, ready for the ceremonial moment. "Ready, Lily?" Rachel whispered. Lily nodded. She raised the scissors, looked at Max, then spoke clearly into the microphone. "I cut this ribbon for the friend who saved my life, and who now is saving everyone's hearts." Snip cheers echoed through the park. A wooden sign was unveiled at the entrance. Guardian's Grove. Dedicated to those who protect with heart, not fear. Below it, a small plaque showed Max, head held high, eyes noble and proud. From that day on, the park became something special. Children played, elders came to sit in stillness, and Max, when well enough, visited each evening with Lily, lying beneath the trees, ears twitching to the wind and laughter. The place that once marked fear and misunderstanding had become a symbol of love, redemption, and hope. Max spent his final days wrapped in the gentlest light life could offer a loyal soul. Each morning, Lily woke and called his name first. She didn't need an alarm, just the soft thump of Max's tail tapping the floor to know he was still there. Max could no longer run or play like before, but he still managed to follow Lily around the yard, lifting his head toward her with a gaze that held exhaustion and joy. They read books together. Lily would sit cross-legged, one hand on Max's back, reading stories about heroes while Max lay quietly, eyes half closed, listening. Sometimes she'd fall asleep mid-sentence, and Max wouldn't move, guarding her dreams. Every afternoon, they visited the oak tree in Guardian's Grove, the one Lily once called the fairy house. There, Max would rest his head on her lap, watching the sky turn gold. No interruptions, no noise, just the wind, the leaves, and the laughter of a little girl sharing her world. But one day, Max didn't rise after his nap. All day, he stayed close to Lily. When she ate breakfast, he lay under the table. When she drew, he curled by her chair. When she played with her dolls, he laid his head gently on her lap, as if unwilling to let a single moment pass without her near. Rachel noticed. "Something's different," she whispered to David, eyes never leaving Max. By late afternoon, Max slowly stood, unsteady, trembling, then gently tugged at Lily's sleeve, just like the day he pulled her from the woods. "What is it, Max?" she giggled. "Want to play?" She followed him, unaware this would be their final walk together. Max led her to the same oak tree. A breeze stirred her hair. She sat down. Max this time lay closer, resting his cheek on her thigh. His eyes closed. Lily ran her fingers down his back. Sleepy? Okay, nap time. She sang a soft lullaby, barely more than a whisper. Max sighed. One